So how long have you been a lawyer?
So I've been a lawyer since May of 2014, so a little over 6 years.
Okay. And I think in our meeting that we had about a year ago, I think, you were talking about the journey, how you wanted to go to school for it, it's what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to kind of talk about that journey a little bit?
Yeah, it's a little crazy. So I grew up in Ohio. I am the oldest of 4 kids. First person and only person in my family to go to college, and then went and got an undergrad at UNLV in communications. I was and then a minor in film. And
Nice.
I worked at the ABC affiliate down in Vegas, worked retail and restaurants, worked at the Venetian and Caesars and some other places. But I kept through the process trying to figure out what I wanted to do. The communications degree was nice. It was a fun job at the ABC affiliate, but I had 2 little kids and it didn't pay a lot. So I'm like, what do I do? And so through that time, I ended up substitute teaching for a little bit, and read Dan Miller's book, 48 Days to the Work You Love.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey talks about it a lot.
Okay.
And so it was one where I'm like, okay, I've been subbing, I really enjoy this, I'm gonna do it, And then
it was an aha moment, but kind of book.
Kind of, yeah. And it's like, okay, so go after your passion, the thing that you really like doing. So then I went and I went and did my teaching certificate, got that, and ended up teaching. And enjoyed that. I still have relationships with the kids. I taught 4th grade for a couple years.
Okay.
And then after a couple years, both my wife and I were at the same school, and then we were non-renewed. And then I'm like, crap, what do I do? So I literally had a meltdown over at Circle right next to the Target by Tinseltown. Sitting in my car, just bawling my eyes out. And I'm like, I have to do something here. And so I'm 35 years old going, what the heck do I do? Mm-hmm. And I've got 2 kids now that were in like junior high. We had just bought a house, and I'm like, holy cow, this is getting real. And so then at that point, I decided to say, I'm 35. I had friends that were doctors and dentists and orthodontists, a couple lawyer friends. But the path to becoming a doctor, dentist, or orthodontist was much longer. And I needed something from a time value standpoint as well, because I needed something where I could get through faster because of my kids' ages and things like that. So law school is only 3 years.
Okay.
So I went and I took the LSAT. I'm not a big reader. I like audiobooks a ton.
Same here.
But I don't read a ton. And I'm like, sure, I'll do this profession where you have to read a lot. And
a lot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So did you learn how to read? Get
you
better?
do. Okay. It's kind of like it's one of those things where it's you're doing it by fire, right? You're just tossed into the deep end of the pool, type of a thing.
So you have to swim.
Yeah, here's like your 50 pages that you have to read for your class tomorrow.
Oh gosh.
And it's like, holy cow. And then I'm having to read some of those twice because like it had been a long time since I had been an undergrad. And so I do that, and my goal was to get into University of Denver. I got rejected, and so I applied to some other schools, ended up getting to University of Toledo out in Ohio. We grew up in Ohio. My wife looks at me and she's like, there's no way in heck that I'm moving to Ohio. And so her and the kids stayed here.
Okay.
And I did my first year out in Ohio by myself. And it was difficult for me, but it was also super hard for them because I was gone too. And so I came back after first year with the intention of transferring back and getting into Denver. And then I applied to get into Denver, and I was rejected.
Dang.
And I was interning up at a firm up in Woodland Park, and my boss looks at me and he goes, or I think it was actually his wife at the time, looked at me and goes, you want to be a lawyer, don't you? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, appeal it, fight it. And so I did.
Hey.
And so I went up. I had a meeting with the dean of admissions up there. My boss, who was an alumni up at Denver, he wrote me a letter too, and which I can't thank him for enough, and ended up getting into Denver.
Nice.
So then I go through and start going to classes. So I'm living down south by Fort Carson, driving up to Woodland Park, interning, and then driving up to Denver 4 days a week for class. Just doing that rotation, right? And that was during, I think, second or third year was during the Waldo. Yeah, first year at Denver was the Waldo Canyon fire. Next year was the Black Forest fire. And so crazy driving times and things like that at times too.
Yeah. It was already crazy driving times.
Yeah, and then even adding those in as I'm coming back down, I'm like, holy cow, this was, it was.
Did you get a lot of audio books done?
Yeah, a lot of audio, and a lot of just even late nights up there just trying to study because I'm like, where's my safe space to actually study and kind of hone in on things. So then in law, a lot of times they talk about lawyers as being like, you can't trust them, things like that. But the crazy thing is we have an ethics test that we actually have to take. So there's a rules of ethics that we're governed by to where we can't do a lot of a lot of things, and it guides us on what we can do. So
it also probably helps teach you too.
Oh, like, absolutely.
You probably learn a moral code.
Absolutely. And their thing, and it talks anything from advertising to representing one client versus another and things like that. And so I took that test and I failed it. And so I retook it again and I passed it.
Nice.
So then I graduate in 2013 and then go back up and forth to study that summer for the bar exam, go and take the bar exam in July of 2013. And then on October 10th of 2013, it was my daughter's 17th birthday, and I get my bar results.
Okay.
And I find out that I failed.
I saw a theme here.
Right, exactly. So. And she looks at me and she goes, "Dad, that's the worst birthday present I've ever had."
Oh,
I'm
no.
like, well, that's that's pretty bad for me too.
Yeah.
And then so it was one of those things too. By that point, I was about 38, 39, and I'm like, I can take it. And I told myself, I'm like, I can do this one more time. I've known people that have taken it more than 2 times, but multiple times. And but I just kind of put my back against the wall and said, this has to be the one. Because they only offer the bar exam twice a year. And so it's one of those things where I can't run it 3, 4, 5 times, because then I had a time value thing that I had to get to, because I had kids that were getting closer to graduation in college. And so I'm like, this has to be done now.
Yeah. So you spent like 6 months really studying hard?
Yeah. And what I did is, it was interesting because I was somebody too, as I know the material. But I struggled as a test taker. I had to learn how to take the test, actually, not to know the material. So I got together with some people from that Professor Johns up at Denver had recommended, and especially this one guy really helped me out. And he goes, "Here's what I recommend you do." And he's like, he changed everything for me. And I just killed it and passed the next time. Sweet. A funny little tidbit about that, though, is when you get a letter telling you your result, right? And so when I got my one in October of 2013 that said that I failed, the word fail, it says bar result, fail, the word fail. But fail was in all caps.
Yeah.
And the other funny thing is then whenever I get, on the next one, I get bar result, pass, but it's just capital P, A-S-S.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, what? Come on, man.
They're really
give me
trying to just shove it in you.
Yeah, I'm like, I want the good stuff. If you're going to say fails in all caps, come on, give me the other one too.
It's the small things.
Yes. And so I still have those as a motivational piece. But it's interesting. As I look back on it now, it's part of my story. But I was at a conference recently too where I'm like, that story no longer defines me, right? It's something too where we can learn from it.
For sure.
But we can't hold on to it as this thing of, I always look at whenever we talk about failures, it's growth. Period.
Definitely, yeah.
We can't be kind of stuck down and kind of comatose by a failure, right?
I think the thing to remember is that you stuck through it.
Yeah.
You didn't let that stop you.
Oh, yeah.
You continued, that's something definitely to hold on to.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I feel the exact same way about the business now, right?
Okay.
It's, you start at ground zero, square one, and you're like, but then as you keep looking forward, it hasn't been perfect.
No.
And that's okay.
Never is.
But what do we do every time it's not perfect? We learn from it and we keep growing. We keep moving forward and we keep reaching for that goal that we're going to strive to get to.
Either you let it beat you down or you fight through it.
Right. And I could tell you it's never going to beat me down. Yeah. So it's one of those things, that mentality that I've got is you've got to keep pushing.
This is a show where we have real conversations with the business owners and entrepreneurs here in Colorado Springs, doing things in the community of Colorado Springs.